think that you're making a lot of conscious decisions. However, this is housed 95% by your subconscious. And your subconscious controls so much, and it's affected by so much. So you could say, God, I don't know why I did that, or why do I believe those things? It's all subconscious. So when you can start to handle your subconscious, then you can start improving your life. Let's talk about it right now. Check it out. Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Positivity Experience. It's your girl, Lori, and I'm so excited to talk to you about this topic. Happy St. Patrick's Day. If you're listening to this on its release day, it's St. Patrick's Day. So happy St. Patrick's Day. We are already well into March, which is crazy, and it's been quite windy here. So I feel like I'm recording this from Oz, from the land of Oz, and I'm really excited to really dive into this because subconscious, this is what really helped me, many of the things that helped me, but this is one of the things that really helped me change my mindset through the neuroplasticity. And we'll talk to that when we get to neuroplasticity here in a moment. But it's imperative that you understand that so much of what we do is subconscious. So let's talk a little bit about what the subconscious is. But I want you to see it as an iceberg. Okay, there's an iceberg. So if you are in Alaska or wherever, you're going to look at an iceberg, which I'm assuming is going to be North Pole somewhere. And if you, oh no, I said Alaska, I meant North Pole. But if you are looking at an iceberg, you are going to see the top of this iceberg. And it's just going to, like, you're only going to see a little bit of it, even though you might be like, wow, that's a big iceberg. What you don't see is everything underneath. The reality is the iceberg itself that you see, minor. It's very minor. But beneath that, it spreads far and wide. That's how I want you to visualize your subconscious. Many things are going to contribute to that subconscious mindset. Think of automatic things, breathing, blinking, heart rate. That's all automatic. That's an automatic process. Believe it or not, it's subconscious, but it's all automatic. So when you automatically process something, it's an automatic think pattern, right? Thought pattern. So when you are thinking, and you're like, God, why do I go there? It's an automatic thought, which means you can actually change that automatic thought with the neuroplasticity that we're going to talk about here shortly. And so what you want to do is, as you develop better coping strategies and you start staying mindful, you're going to accept that those experiences that you had that really kind of level set what that subconscious is, you're able to change and control it. So I want you to understand that in that subconscious, it's an automatic process. Your subconscious just takes over. And you are under this illusion that you're making all these decisions. I'm making these conscious decisions. Yeah, you're executing those decisions. But what you are seeing and how you're seeing it and how you are perceiving it is all done subconsciously, even though you feel it's consciously. Because it's an underlier. You're not going to know it. That's why when you sleep, that really taps into a lot of your subconscious. That's what your dreaming is about. Your dreams are through your subconscious. And it's a fun little fact on that. We'll talk about that when we get there too. It's also the storage of memories. Your subconscious stores memories. So everything that you live right now, everything you believe, everything that you see is literally only based in memories. It does not exist. It really doesn't exist. The only place it exists is in your mind. It's the only place that it exists. Now, you can see things and say, okay, from a history perspective, there's lingering leftover things, right? So whatever we see in history, you can see that there's a domino effect, and then you can see the things that have changed. You learn about various things. That part is there because it was a change. How we got there is gone. So everything that you see, feel, touch is done through your perception. Well, you're touching in actual consciousness, but when you are seeing it and you're in that mindset, you are doing so solely based on a memory. So your subconscious takes this little thing and it gives you the experiences that you've had, and it formulates that into feelings and reactions. So if you ever said, oh my God, I don't know why I'm reacting that way. Wow, why did I just go off the deep end? Subconsciously, based on a past experience. So this is why sleep is important. Believe it or not, sleep is important for so much. Do you know that without sleep, you could die? Yes. You can also have too much water. You can have too much of anything. You can have not enough of anything. Life is a very unique thing. But when you really unbox it and you say to yourself, okay, I need to get sleep. Why are you tired? Well, you're tired for a multitude of reasons. Your body's been bodying all day long, right? You've been bodying, you've been living. When you sleep, there is this part of your brain. This was so interesting for me to learn when I was studying like human behavior, like why we do what we do. It's quite amazing. And it's also a little alarming because you're like, oh my God, my body does a lot of things when I'm unaware. But when you sleep, it does many things for restoration. But in the brain, what it does is it takes everything that you see. Because imagine this, if you kept everything that you thought, every interaction, everything that you've seen, and you kept it in the conscious mind every single day, oh my God, you'd literally go insane, like quite literally go insane because you can't process that. So when you sleep, there's this part of your brain and it goes, is this important? Nah, get rid of it. Is this important? Nah, get rid of it. Oh, this is important. Okay, let's store this here. Ooh, I don't like that. That was scary. Let's put this back here. So your mind is actually replenishing itself and really kind of cataloging things and getting rid of things that aren't needed. So when you sleep, your body is doing so many other things. And I may do a podcast on somnophobia because a lot of people have actually asked me to do so. You'd be surprised how many people are afraid to sleep for a multitude of reasons. One being that you can't control. That's always the underlying factor because you're basically like unconscious and your subconscious is taking over and you kind of don't know what's going on. So for people who struggle with control or certain levels of anxiety, this can become problematic. So then you have the chicken and the egg. I want to stay up, but I need to go to sleep because if I don't have sleep, it's going to make my anxiety, all of these other things way worse. So you have that weird dialogue that comes into play. Some of that is subconscious. Some of that you think is consciousness, but it is coming from your subconscious and your experiences. Okay. Influence. It is going to influence your behavior. It houses your mindset. It houses your reactions. It houses your decisions. And it makes those decisions based on what your belief system is, what you've allowed to articulate and infiltrate within yourself. And so when you're making these decisions, you think that you're making it from a conscious decision, but you're making it from fear. All fear is, you feel it today. You're like, oh my God, no, I feel it. It's real. I can feel it. I'm conscious. Yeah, but it's from something subconsciously. Right? So this is that where you're having a relationship problem. This is a little separate, but I want to kind of break this down. Where you're having a relationship issue and you are really struggling with attachment, you're struggling with something, and you come to me and we're having a session and we start talking about your wedding. We can talk about that too. Your relationship, but then I pivot and I take you back to third grade or kindergarten or whenever we were. And you're like, that's weird. Here, talk about my marriage. There's a deeper rooted issue. Subconsciously, you're attached based on conscious interactions that you had that sometimes you remember, sometimes you don't, and they're committed into your consciousness. So the decisions you make, the fears that you face are all based in your subconscious interactions, experiences, and past. Okay, so this is why when you do meditations, which we'll talk about in a second, when you do meditations, when you do breathing, when you're doing your 5 journals, when you're doing those things, you're tapping into your subconscious, in turn, changing the way that your brain sees and stores things from a neuroplasticity level, right? Emotional processing is massive, massive for your subconscious, right? If you ever said to myself or to yourself, oh my God, this emotional dysregulation. Yes, you can have other issues that makes your emotional dysregulation even more prominent. How you could be neurodivergent. You could have other things. You could have had a TBI. Yes, a lot of things can cause it, but I want you to understand where it's coming from. So your emotional processing is based on past experiences and internalized patterns. So if you've internalized everything and you are afraid of confrontation and you're afraid to extend yourself and you're afraid of rejection and you're afraid of taking risks and you're doing all that stuff, again, based in a subconscious situation. So in turn, what you're doing, your emotional processing is internalized sort of chaos that comes out. If in fact it's dysregulated. When you focus on regulating it by staying present, by pulling back, pulling back that bird's eye view, looking at a situation before you respond to it. I know for me, who I have ADHD, a lot of you have ADHD, you have to make a conscious effort not to overtalk somebody because you don't mean to be rude. And you're not trying to be rude. What it is you're like, oh my God, I got this thought process and I got to attack it right now. Like I'll forget, right? And you don't realize it. Well, maybe you do realize it. And so you have to make that conscious effort because subconsciously that's an automatic response. It's an automatic response. So don't beat yourself up for it, but understand that in that emotional processing, it's solely based in past experiences. This does not mean that you use it as an excuse. It is just a reason why you're struggling. And again, there's other variables that come into that, but it still is affiliated with your subconscious mind. I mean, the body and the mind is a fascinating thing and can be actually triggering because I studied it. And I continue to study it because you're never going to know everything about the brain and the body. It's just never going to happen. Don't care who you are. As you study more, especially if you have anxiety, it helps, but it also can create a separate amount of anxiety because you're like, oh my God, my body does so much. My brain does so much. And then as you age, certain functions go bye-bye and certain things change. And then there's different parts of your brain that sort of stops not working, but depends on like if you have dementia, things like that. So we know that there's like amino acids and all of these things. It's just fascinating. And so when you learn about your subconscious and you think that as in our waking moments, like we're consciously making all these decisions, yeah, we are, but it's driven by our subconscious. So if you've ever said to yourself, why can't I change? Why can I not change? This is why habit changing, consistency, SMART goals, micro goals, staying present, this is mandatory if you want to restructure how your subconscious thinks. It's not to forget the past. It's a restructure of your brain. Now, dreams. Remember when I was talking to you about dreams? Dreams are emotional things that you can get attached to. Oh my God, I had a dream about this. I don't mean visits from like passed away loved ones because you'll know because you're usually outside in those dreams or they're standing by your bed. If you're playing cards in a cellar, no, it's just a dream. So some of those dreams that you have that are actually intuitive, you'll know. You really will know. It's a different feeling. It's a different vibe. Now, dreams themselves are tapping into your subconscious. So let's say, and I talk about this on the worksheet. Oh, yeah, I've totally forgot to tell you. If you're on Patreon, you're going to have a really good worksheet this week for this. If you want to get on the Patreon so you know where to start, that comes with the worksheet, jump over to Patreon at patreon.com/the positivity experience or click the link anywhere in the show notes here. It is important because the worksheet will really help you kind of unbox a little bit more about your subconscious. So you may consider doing that if that's your jam. But going back into the dreams, if you have dreams of, say, storms, you're like, oh my God, why would I have these dreams? I'm having these nightmares. And what do these nightmares mean? Doesn't necessarily mean it's anything negative. Dreams don't necessarily mean what you see at face value. And this is important in your day-to-day life. You may take something at face value. This is facts. Well, did you do the research on it? Have you done the critical thinking on it? Which that podcast is coming. It's just been a pain in the ass. But you have to understand that when you pull back on that bird's eye view and you can see it rationally, then you're not going to give weight to these dreams. Okay. Just because I know for me, and I think I talked about this in a previous podcast, I can remember this. I can barely remember what I had for dinner 4 days ago, but this dream I can remember. And I was like 5 or 6, like if that old. And I had this dream. This is only going to make sense to you if you ever watch Bugs Bunny. Okay. If you never watch Bugs Bunny, it's not going to make sense to you, but I'll try to make it make sense to you. On Bugs Bunny, I call him the big tooth guy. He doesn't have big teeth. He's this big orange fuzzy thing. And he had on sneakers, big, huge orange thing. And he looks like a giant tooth. And he would chase things. He would chase Bugs Bunny. He would chase. I don't know. Maybe I watched the movie, the show multiple times because I loved Bugs Bunny. I don't know. But I went to sleep one night. And in my dream, this orange tooth is chasing me. This orange tooth is literally chasing me. And I was where my bestie Kim lived on the street. I guess in my dream, I was down on her street and I was running and jumping over these chain link fences. God, say that 10 times. And I'm going slow motion. I mean, I'm like running through quicksand. Whoa, running through. Meanwhile, this tooth thing is flying. I mean, he is chasing me. So I woke up. Oh, I've also hit ground. You know how they say, you don't hit the ground in your dreams. That's a lie. I've hit the ground. I've been shot in my dreams. Some are dreams, some are past lives. So, some of them are actually memories. So that's another thing. You could be carrying memories from your past lives into here. That's what causes the dreams. So a lot of that's subconscious. But why was I running through the quicksand? Of course, you don't know this at 5 or 6 years old. Well, my house was chaotic. My brain was chaotic. My house was chaotic. I had anxiety. I was talking to dead people, like literally. So I had a lot of turmoil. So you feel as though you're in fear when you feel out of control. So that tooth guy represented all of the things that I couldn't control. And I feel like I couldn't run from them. So that's why I was in that quicksand. And I love to go back to that dream, even though I can literally remember how freaked out I was because I was so little. I love to go back there because it reminds me of things. So I know if I'm having a dream that's tumultuous, I can never say that word. But if I'm having a dream like that, I know that it's an inner battle inside of me. There's something I'm dealing with. Yes, that can become more real, like feel real. If you have depression, anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia, like we know that, but just remember it's a subconscious thing. This is big for people who have night terrors. I've also had sleep paralysis. That's another reason why people sometimes struggle with going to sleep. I've had I have had street paralysis. Yes, I have. I've had sleep paralysis. And in that paralysis, sometimes that can be very scary, but there's a whole reason for it. And there's a medical reason, and there's also an energy reason, but I'll talk about it when I start talking to you about somnophobia, because so many people struggle with it. You would be surprised. A little different than insomnia, but it's an actual fear. So anyway, that's the wrap on dreams. And that's the wrap on dreams and how your subconscious affects them. So don't breathe life into that anymore. Your creativity and intuition is big with your subconscious. Okay. Spontaneous insights, creativity, mind working, all of those things are going to tap into your creativity and your intuition. So what does that mean? That means you pick up new skills. That's right. You pick up new skills, you try new things, and you do so without the need to follow an instruction. Don't follow a pattern. Don't follow a paint by number. You can color outside the lines. If it says use brown, use green. It doesn't matter. So if you want to work on that neuroplasticity, you're going to want to pick up a new skill. Painters, this is so good for painters and people who draw. Even if you say, I am terrible at drawing, I suck at this, that's okay. Don't plan what it is that you're going to draw. Don't plan what it is that you're going to paint. Allow yourself to channel in, use the color. It doesn't even have to look like a picture. It's going to be a representation of your inner turmoil. This is why, if you've ever seen like Van Gogh, or if you've ever heard Mozart, or anything that you go, man, they're genius. If I told you how many geniuses in this world in the past now have struggled with anxiety and depression, it is astounding. It's most of them, if not all of them. That's why even like you'll see people who sing. You'll be like, oh my God, that was a banger. That song was slamming, Taylor Swift, right? That song was slamming. Well, she took those painful moments through past relationships and different things and channeled it into her music. In turn, it's great songs. Like, you know what I mean? At least in my opinion, great songs. But I say all of that to tell you that if you are hampering your creativity, if you're trying to go into perfectionism, oh, I can't do that. I can't paint. Why would I pick up a paintbrush if I can't paint? Everybody can paint. Everybody has, well, not everybody. If you have the physical capacity to paint, you can paint. Does that mean that you're going to go sell $10 million worth of art? No, but you have the capability. Your issue is you go into the perfectionism subconsciously. That subconscious reaction is like, oh my God, I feel unsafe. If they don't like me, I feel unsafe. Don't you remember that experience we had? Subconscious talking to your conscious. Don't you remember that experience you had? Oh my God, no, you can't. There's no way you can pick up this paintbrush. But that's why the creativity actually allows your brain to restructure itself. So that leads me into neuroplasticity. Oh my gosh, neuroplasticity is so amazing and it's hopeful. So we know that trauma affects the brain. It affects the body. Again, there's a book. It's called, it stores in the body. Like that's it. And the trauma response in your body and in your brain is a lasting one unless you work on it. So your brain has something called neuroplasticity. So the brain itself is so magnificent and we barely tap into it. I mean, we don't even use like the tip of an eraser. Like we use these different areas, right? You know, the frontal cortex, you know, where the, amygdala is. Okay. But you're still only tapping in to such a small part of your brain. Even geniuses tap into maybe a little bit more. There's a whole part of gray matter that isn't even used. You have so much gray matter in your brain that's just there that we could tap into. That's why you'll find people who are genius and who do different things. There is I watched this on, the show, if you haven't watched it, watch it. William Shatner hosts it and it's like Unexplained. I think it's called Unexplained something. I can't remember, but go look it up. And every week he talks about things that are unexplained. Well, in this one week, in this most recent season, he talks about geniuses. Well, he helps talk about geniuses. And they have done research after research after research. And the question always is, are you born a genius or are you made a genius? Like, can you do both? And I think that there's a place for both. Okay. And there is a guy on there, and I can't remember if he has Asperger's or autism. He has something to where his processing is different than ours. And he can, it's fascinating to watch him. And this was on a YouTube video years ago. He went up into a helicopter and he went over New York City. Like the helicopter flew for like maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay. He maybe a little bit longer, but nothing crazy. So they fly him over the city. Okay. They fly him over and around the city and they land. He goes into this room and he paints exactly what he's seen. Paints or draws exactly what he's seen. I think he missed one building and one or two streets. And that's the part of the brain he used. So we know if people are neurodivergent or if they're on the autism spectrum or the Asperger's, anything like that, believe it or not, they use actually sometimes more of their brain or a different part of their brain. And when you learn that and you understand it, you're like, oh my God, that's incredible. So the neuroplasticity for your brain, the brain can do magnificent things. Our problem is we get caught on these loops of thoughts and feelings and thinking that they're facts, which they are not. They're literally snapshots. So if you ever said, my God, and I don't mean from an OCD diagnosis, but if you're like, why am I always negative? Why am I always negative? That's your subconscious working. So you battle your subconscious with your consciousness. Okay, I want to change. I want to be productive. I want to be consistent. I want to do all those things. That's great. But if you don't put action behind that, you're never going to do it because your subconscious is going to go, nah, we don't like that. Nope, that's scary. That's dangerous. We don't want to do that. And so you battle yourself and then you get mad at yourself because you're like, why am I acting that way? Why am I doing that? Because it's your subconscious, babe. Right? So with neuroplasticity, shadow work is going to be big here. And what it does is it allows your brain to, where the damaged part from say trauma or even a TBI or whatever is there, it allows that neurons, because your brain is filled with neurons, it allows that to funnel into a non-damaged area. That's neuroplasticity summarized because it can go way in depth. But think of it as like, okay, wow, this is like really dangerous and I don't like this and it's scary and there's some damage here. And your brain, when you're tapping into these things I'm going to tell you about, it takes that and it says, oh, let's go here. In turn, changing that. Hence habits. Because after a while, it's going to become automatic. So let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say when you walk in, this is why you'll hear people say everything has to have a home. Like everything, your keys, your mail, your shoes, whatever. If you're just all willy-nilly and you don't have a place for it, it's never going to become automatic. But if you ever find yourself going, okay, I'll give you an example. I get up in the morning, I put in my contacts, brush my teeth. Try to do that every morning before I do anything else. It is such an automatic response. I don't even think about it. I just go straight there. I do what I'm doing and I leave like every single day. So when your brain starts to go, and you got to be careful of staying in the safe pattern, but that's something different. When you walk in the door and you have a place to put your keys, you're automatically going to put them there. So then you're not going, where's my keys? What do I do with my phone? I don't know where it is, right? And that's really big because then it helps structure your brain where maybe growing up you never had structure. Maybe you never had structure. So you're chaotic. So your subconscious goes, I don't know. I don't know how to do that. I don't like that. Let's just drop this here. So it's about changing your mind literally. But you're going to have to embrace the suck. You're going to have to change all of that. Okay. So when your brain changes, it's going to be done by new experiences. If you live in the past and you focus on the past, or you fantasize about the future, but you're not having new experiences today, it's going to be very difficult for your subconscious to change. How do you do that? Well, you have new experiences. Learning, believe it or not, learning a language literally goes, oh, look at us. We're learning something new. It starts to change those neural pathways. I mean, there's multitudes of things that tell you why learning languages is spectacular. The late Kobe Bryant, I think he had fluency in English, Italian, maybe Spanish or French. I can't remember because I know he lived overseas briefly or growing up. And I'm not saying that's why he was so smart, but it does help with your creativity. So learning a new language, and you can do that on apps like Babbel or Rosetta Stone or whatever. I'm sure there's a million new ones out, Duolingo, things like that. And you can do it by learning a new word a day, learning the dialogue. So just because you learn, like if I'm going to go, hola, well, hola, they're going to know I'm saying hello, but you also want to work on the dialect. You want to work on the dialogue, not so much the accent, but how you present the word. That's going to take that and it's going to build confidence because you're like, oh my God, I'm learning Spanish. Oh my God, I'm learning French. Now I try to learn all the curse words in languages. It's easy and it's easy to remember, but I do want to pick up another language. And Spanish is big here in the United States because there's a lot of Spanish speaking people. So you can have that bilingual benefit here, but I also love French and I love Italian. I love all kinds of different languages. I have a client in New Jersey and she is massively fluent in Italian and she has just really flourished just in her own personal growth, in her own personal self-confidence. And part of her brain is going, oh, let's restructure. So it's taking an area that maybe have never had an experience, or at least not a good one, and it allows you to align differently. Okay, so it really helps you because you have the structural neurons, and then you have the functional ones. And so you want to make sure that you're working on those things by things like taking a different course, learning a new skill. I play pickleball. I've done crochet. I am looking at a few other things for new skills. I try to learn a new skill a year, at least one, and I do it not just once. I learn a new skill, maybe a new language or something, but every year I try to pick up something different and I try to expand on what it is I'm learning, right? If you ever go, I'm just a professional painter and I'm amazing. I mean, that's great, but are you going to learn a new technique? Are you going to use new paint? We don't have to get caught in that rut because if not, you're going to stay in that subconscious spiral. Okay. You'll also notice this if somebody has lost part of their senses. So let's say you've lost sight. Your hearing becomes sharper. Your taste becomes better. Your touch becomes more sensitive. So your brain adapts, right? Because it goes, oh, well, this isn't working. What else can we do? So it takes that and it like pivots it. And we know that that's neuroplasticity. So very often, if you have the repetitiveness that's not a positive and you're living in the negative, you're doing all of that stuff, your brain's not adapting to anything. Your brain's just there, right? It's just there. I mean, it's still functioning. But you have to be careful because if you keep living in the safe space, you're going to keep responding from that same subconscious area, right? And so it's working on that, accepting that this is work. This is work. Everything is going to come back to a handful of things. Whether you hear it from me, whether you hear it from 700 other people, whether you hear it from God himself, it is still going to come down to a handful of things. And it's about understanding why your brain does what it does. That's why I started studying human development or, human behavior in the first place, to understand my brain. Because I got to tell you, I felt really crazy, like literally crazy. And sometimes if your anxiety is bad, you can feel like you're going to go off the deep end anyway. And I just couldn't figure it out. This is where my OCD has been very helpful, because I am a studier. Oh, that sounds good. Let's do this. Oh, I want to learn this, even though it may be scary. So I use my OCD as a superpower when it comes to that. But when you really start to get an understanding of why you're acting like you are, again, maybe it's a chemical imbalance, maybe it's a certain disability that you were born with, maybe it's a TBI. There's a multitude of reasons. But when you understand that about your brain, you stop kind of feeling helpless. You really do. You go, Now, some things you're not going to be able to change. You're just not going to be able to change it. And it's really interesting. So my mom, before she passed, a couple years before she passed, she had a stroke. She had a heart attack. She had a stroke. And she was paralyzed on the left side. And it's interesting how your brain works. So you'd be like, oh, okay, this affected her left brain. No, affected her right brain. So think of it as like a diagonal. And it was really interesting because watching her, because when she was paralyzed on the left side, she had to keep her arm kind of in a sling, because she had no control over this arm. So this arm would have just be flying everywhere, right? So she put it in a sling. And there were certain areas of her right side that became stronger. And I don't just mean muscularly stronger. Certain cognition in her brain, because the right brain houses your speech. So she didn't lose speech, right? Left side often houses that. So you'll notice that. So typically you can tell which side that stroke was. And it's just very interesting. And I don't want to say it keeps you from worrying, but when you have an understanding of how the brain works and how the body works, and some things that you're just like, oh my God, it makes you a little angry with your DNA at times, because you're like, my God, I'm doing everything I could do. And here's the cards I was dealt. Well, you do the best you can with what you got. But as far as your subconscious, that's what you want to tap into. And it comes from things like repetitive actions, having a place for things, meditation. Meditation has been proven to be beneficial in so many different medical areas, and this is one of them. I do the exposure piece of it. So if you fear it, it's your subconscious going, oh God, no, we don't like this. Last time we did this, it was crazy. Oh, that brings me up to something too. If you've gone to the store, let's say you've gone to McDonald's. I don't know why that came up. Say you went to McDonald's, and on your way to McDonald's, you caught an anxiety. You were just anxious. You're like, oh my God, why do I feel like I'm having an anxiety attack on the way to this specific McDonald's? Okay. Get your McDonald's, you come home, you get through the panic attack. 3 or 4 days later, I come over to the house and I say to you, hey, let's go to McDonald's. Let's go to this McDonald's. You go, oh, okay. Well, you're already apprehensive because now you have attached that McDonald's to this anxiety attack, which has nothing to do with each other. Just because you were going to that McDonald's doesn't mean that McDonald's is going to provide that anxiety every single time. So I would keep us going there. Now, it might create an anxiety attack because you psychosomatically say, oh my God, this is scary. The last time I was here, I had an anxiety attack. Well, that's not really happening. Well, it might be happening, but you're triggering that to happen. That's your subconscious. Your subconscious goes, no. Remember last time we came here? Oh no, that was bad. So in turn you go, oh God, I don't want to do that. That's bad. So as you start changing that and realizing that every time you make this action in relationships, no, not every relationship that you're in is going to be a cheater. No, not every relationship or friendship that you have is going to be a sucky one. No, that's your subconscious holding on to the past experience. Do you see how that works? So you want to start developing your neuroplasticity. It's all within your control. And we're going to pop over to Patreon and we're going to go through that worksheet because I think the worksheet is going to be extremely beneficial, like most of them are. And it's going to help you understand your brain a little bit more. And it's going to force you to go inward. And when you try to avoid yourself, you're avoiding what your subconscious is in the first place. So don't breathe too much life into your dreams, but use that and analyze that and go, what is it that I'm struggling with? My favorite dreams are flying dreams. When I'm having a good day or whatever, and I wish I had them more as far as the flying dreams. I love flying dreams. I fly like Superman. I fly like a bird. It is exhilarating. It is free. It feels like, oh my God, I don't have to worry about anything. I love these dreams. So I know that when those dreams come, I try to look and go, what was I doing? Something was working, and I just try to capitalize on it. So your dreams can steer you. Just don't be afraid of them, even the negative ones, because they're actually showing you what it is that you're dealing with on the inside. But once you can start to, I don't want to say control your subconscious, because you're not going to, it's subconscious. But once you can feed it different experiences, different knowledge, different decisions, going into the scary part and realizing that you're okay, your subconscious will start to adjust that and kind of not throw out everything else, but sort of like it'll just compartmentalize it and you won't be triggered by it. So that's why working on your subconscious is important. And don't judge yourself in this, because it's taken you a long time to get here. That subconscious has carried you thus far, good, bad, and indifferent. So we just want to be kind to yourself. You want to be compassionate in this process, but you want to do the work, because you can seriously restructure your subconscious. Check it out.